Today's video is not a typical video, but it is a very special video. As you may know, I dabble a little bit in no-budget amateur filmmaking. You can check out my filmmaking channel, Laughing Windows Productions. I have also just recently done a collaboration short film with my friend Arnie, known as The Gordonite, here on YouTube. So the following conversation is sort of like a wrap conversation, just talking about the behind the scenes, the making of Gospel, which Arnie and I made together. It's kind of a long conversation, so if you're down, just chill, hang out with us, and just listen along. While it may not be the most exciting video for the audience, I think it was a really necessary conversation for Arnie and I to have because, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So there's so much that happens behind the scenes, so much that goes into making these films that does not translate into the final product. So this conversation kind of serves as a filmmaker's diary for us, and it allowed us to just share everything that went on behind the scenes on both sides. If you haven't watched Gospel yet, I highly suggest doing that. First, I'll have it linked above and below. And then if you are interested, hang out with Arnie and me while we talk everything Gospel. Okay, hello.
Hello.
This is our first time talking in real time.
That's true. It's pretty weird to think about.
I know. So we are here today to do kind of a recap and talk a little bit about your short film, Gospel, which came out just a couple weeks ago now. And I've worked on it with you. And so there was a lot of stuff that happened, a lot of stuff that went into this process. So today we're just going to talk behind the scenes. Thank you for joining me.
Oh yeah, excited to do this.
So first, I want to ask you to talk a little bit about your inspiration behind this film because you wrote it.
Yes, I did. Part of the inspiration was, and I'm sure you've had this thought too, it's like, what can I do? You know, what is something I can actually achieve? And the entity that is in the film is something that's been stuck in my head for a long time. And we had talked about where that came from a Clark Ashton Smith story. And I just wanted to use that concept in some way. Then it came down to, so where can this entity be? What settings do I have access to? And it just kind of came out of that. What do I have available and where can I put this entity?
Yeah, that's the beauty of low and no budget filmmaking is like, what resources do I have to make this happen? So can you speak a little bit on your writing process? Like how it came about, how you sat down and wrote it?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that came to mind, or the first thing I actually wrote down, would have been some of the Yhoundeh dialogue. And I think I had shared some of those shots, just quick little clips that I had made in the cellar to see what it looked like. Then I just kept thinking about, you start in the middle and go both ways. So I started with that part in the middle with the dialogue, and then I started trying to work back, why is he down there? What's going on? Who else is going to be involved in this? How can I bring somebody else into it? So it was more of start with the middle and then work towards the middle and then from the middle on.
That's really interesting. I like that idea. That you kind of take a moment that is significant and then find a way to make a movie around it.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So one thing that I don't know if people have noticed this about Gospel, but it is a long distance project filmed. Yeah. My part's filmed in Alabama, your part's filmed in Kentucky. I haven't heard anybody say that they could tell But that's something I think is really special about the film. And
Yeah.
I think it came together really smoothly. But what were some of the challenges you encountered when trying to splice our parts together?
Yeah, I haven't said anything about that either, and I haven't heard any comments about it. So I think that means that it worked, right?
I
That's what
guess
it means to
so.
me.
Yeah.
Trying to get the stairwell scene to work on my side was a little difficult because the way that stairwell is, there was really only one angle that would make any sense. So I didn't have a lot of options there, but I think it worked. It obviously worked out in the end. But as far as jumping back and forth from locations, the cellar and then Sarah's various locations, I think that worked really well. I think it was very clear what was going on there. And you had some really good montage material that really helped at the beginning to have a transition from one to the other and then a shorter transition. And then it's clear that we're going back and forth between these two people. It wasn't really, I didn't change any of your edits at all. And everything just kind of went right in. It wasn't difficult at all, really.
I also heard people saying they liked that color contrast that you did, where Steven's scenes were drained of color and then Sarah's had more color in them. Which is funny because I feel like that's something we kind of did to cope with the fact we had two different filming locations.
It definitely helped, yeah.
Yeah, at the same time it was like an artistic choice.
Also, it's a whole lot easier to shoot anything in black and white. So it's a lot more forgiving. Me not being used to being on camera really hardly at all, I was like, what can I what can I do to be as forgiving to myself as possible? But I do just like black and white. I like completely black shadows. I just think it looks cool.
Yes, the basement scenes I thought looked really cool. When you shot your parts, did you shoot over several days or did you shoot all in one day, or how did that kind of end up working for you?
The parts that are in the movie were all shot pretty much in a row in one day. But that was like the fourth try. I had done a few other days where things just weren't working out. And then that's when I finally got my wife to actually be the camera person. And then I was like, okay, now this is the way it should have been from the beginning. You know, I was trying to do everything myself, and I shouldn't
It's
have done
hard.
it. Yeah, yeah. I definitely needed somebody else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was everything that's in the movie is in one continuous day.
I did the same thing. I had two different locations, my house and my parents' house, but I just did it all in one day.
Oh, wow.
And, fun fact, I shot my scenes on a full moon, which I thought was kind of cool. I was like, it's making it more magic.
Yeah,
It was
that's a
daytime,
neat
but-
coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about this. I don't know if anyone else is, but I was curious what program you use to edit video.
I'm using one called VSDC because it was free with all the features available. I went ahead and got the license now, but I don't have video editing experience at all. But when I looked at this one, is very similar. Maybe they all are. Is very similar to audio editing programs, and so I felt more comfortable with that one. I have a little bit of an audio background, but it made me feel safe when I looked at it.
So we recently screened this film on our Discord before a watch party. So I got to kind of hear people's live reactions while they were watching it, and a lot of people mentioned the music in Gospel, saying it was very John Carpenter like. And you wrote this, you made this music, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
That was something, that's probably the second thing as soon as I had at least the first draft of the script, I started thinking about, well, what would the music sound like? And I sat down and started playing around with a few things, and that happened. It all came out in one evening, really quick, and it was one of those things where there's a first version, and then I was like, okay, I'll come back and work on this some more. And I come back, and every little thing I would try to do would make it worse. So I'd just be like, all right, this is the way it needs to be, just like this. And I think once all the parts come in, I think it's really neat. I do enjoy listening to it. Just a nice, hypnotic kind of thing.
The next audio thing we need to talk about is the voice of the entity. I remember when we were talking in the initial stages, talking about this movie, you were saying how you wanted it to kind of sound like a choir of animals or something like that. I can't remember what term you used.
Yeah.
But the voice I thought was so cool. So tell us a little bit about how you did that.
Okay. That took a whole lot of experimentation. Initially, it was purely gonna be made up of animal sounds and whatnot with effects, etc., and all kind of blended together. But it wasn't fitting with the subtitles. I couldn't make it make sense with the subtitles. So then I ended up recording myself saying the lines. Started applying different effects, and there's also elk calls mixed in there that fade up and down.
That's so cool.
And a few other things. It's a whole lot of... My reading of the lines is the basis of it, and then everything else is just kind of stacked on top and on top. We had talked whether it would be better for it to be intelligible or not. And I think the way it ended up, if you read the lines, you can kind of make it out. But if you're just listening, I don't think you could really tell what was being said. And all that stuff's just in, I don't know if I said, all that stuff's just done in Ableton Live with effects and everything like that.
So I'm going to take a moment and just share some of my fun facts from my side of filming. There's a lot that went on behind the scenes, even when it came to Sara's background, her set, the purple room. We wanted to convey that she was an occult enthusiast of some kind. So all the things that are arranged behind her were meticulously chosen and placed. And the sticker on her laptop, of course, was made by you as a little detail to bring more context to the characters and everything. And when we were formulating this, you were like, if you could find anything elk related, because this is an elk goddess, you're like, if you could find anything like elk related or something to put in the background, that would be great. And so I was like looking at the thrift store, just keeping my eye out, and I did find an elk call, an unopened elk call, which is crazy because I live in Alabama, and I thought that was kind of coincidental. I didn't end up getting it, obviously, because it's not aesthetic enough. But I was like, that is kind of weird.
It is weird. Like, why was that there?
We didn't know if we were going to do this at the beginning, but Sara's character is talking on the phone to somebody, and ultimately you decided to put a voice on the other end of the line, and that's your wife.
Yeah.
I think that came out really, really well. We didn't even have those lines written, and
right.
I think it just fit in so good. Did she enjoy her part in the process?
She did. She had some thoughts of things she specifically wanted to say, about call the police, don't do this, that kind of thing. But yeah, it was pretty neat. We actually went through and wrote out all of Sara's lines that she would be responding to, and kind of talked back and forth about what would because we had to insert those lines into your existing footage. So that was an interesting process to, listen to it, what needs to be said right here, and does it make sense with the next line that Sara says. So that was it was pretty fun, actually, and I think it did work out really good. I don't think if I had written a full conversation from the beginning that it would have come out like that.
Yeah. So in a way, it's almost more natural.
You know, one of the things I wanted to mention was because of the way we did this, we were each working on our own schedule, our own time, and messaging and sending stuff back and forth, is being able to respond rather than doing everything in a linear way. It was almost like we were responding back and forth
Yeah.
in some respects, and the phone dialogue was a big part of that. Maybe that was a benefit.
Because the film could continue to change as it was being created.
Yeah.
So something that you told me is something I've realized as well, is that every project teaches you things that you didn't know you needed to learn. So what's something that you learned from making gospel, or like an unexpected challenge that you encountered?
How difficult it is to perform once you hit record. That was a big one for me. And then also how differently you think time is going to pass on screen versus what you think you've recorded. I don't know if that made sense, but
No, it
yeah,
really makes sense. Yeah.
that was really weird. I would think I had so much stuff to work with, and I would start editing or trying to edit stuff together, and like, where did it all go?
Most of mine was bloopers.
Oh,
My
that
footage
too.
was like 90% bloopers and then 10% me getting it right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I threw away so much. And then just on the technical side, file management. I am bad at it. I have so many folders, named Final Take '01.
Yeah, I've got like gospel and then gospel for real and then actual real final gospel.
Yes, exactly. That was a big learning curve. I think next time I'll be way better at that.
So, some of the challenges that I encountered, first of all, I know audio is a big problem for me. I really need a mic at some point. Another, I guess, is more of a fun fact than a challenge, but when I was getting out of the car outside of Steven's house, there are some dogs that are barking. And they were real, and they were big, and they were running loose. And
Oh,
I
gosh.
was like, oh my gosh. And they also wouldn't stop barking. And that, in combination with the fact that the camera was far away from me, meant that I ended up having to dub myself for some of the lines, which I thought was really funny because I watch a lot of dubbed movies and make fun of them, and now I had to do it myself. And I think it came out like kind of funny, but also if you didn't know, you probably couldn't tell.
No, I think it came out really good. Yeah, what was that process like? Could you imagine doing a whole project where everything was dubbed and Foley and...
I don't know, man. I think about that a lot. Just like having to match your voice with the movements of the mouth. I'm like, that
Yeah.
seems trickier than one might think. Another challenge I had in Sarah's house is my cats they had the zoomies while I was shooting. So finding
no.
a quiet moment in between their zoomies is where all my parts were filmed. You have cats too, right?
We do. Yeah, I had to... Yeah, they had to all go in the bedroom and stuff like that. Because sometimes I'd have to have the cellar door open, and they cannot go down there.
Oh, this reminds me of another question I might have looked over. Let's talk about the ritual circle on the cellar floor.
Yeah. That, I had a lot of different ideas for that, but what I ended up actually doing, I used a string to make the actual circles so that they would look nice and symmetrical.
Oh my gosh.
But then I considered looking up like authentic symbols and stuff to put in there, and then I was like, somebody's gonna be like, well, you would never put a Sumerian this beside an Egyptian, blah blah blah.
Right.
So instead, I just kind of really freehand made symbols that felt appropriate. So they're not anything.
Wow.
They're not pulled from anything other than I just drew them out.
That's all original.
Yeah. And then I think I told you the story about the repair guy.
You told me that he was coming, but I don't think you told me what happened.
Okay. So yeah, in the midst of this, we had a leak from our dishwasher, so I had to call a plumber. And didn't think anything about it. He's coming over that day, and I realize he's going to have to go in the cellar, and directly under the dishwasher is a huge devil circle drawn on the floor. But he ended up being really cool about it. I was like, okay, when we go down here, there's some stuff on the floor, but it's for a movie, so don't freak out. And he just kind of gave me this side eye. But then we got down there, and he was like, so this is for like a horror movie or something? I was like, well, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, okay, cool. He's standing in the middle of it working on my dishwasher.
That's awesome. That's probably my favorite story from the whole making of this movie.
It was very weird. I was worried. I was like, what is this guy gonna... Does he think that I have like lured him here?
To sacrifice him?
To sacrifice him in my basement?
That's fantastic.
No, he was really cool about it though.
Have you given any thought to what might happen at the end of the movie? Like what might happen to Steven and Sara?
Well, the implication is that because Sara goes black and white, she has now been exposed to the entity through Steven. So one way you could assume it would go is that, now there's two, and it's like a zombie outbreak. Now it begins to spread.
Spreading the gospel.
Yeah, spreading the gospel, exactly. So you could either be completely pessimistic and, assume that this means that the entity has essentially won. Or you could, because there's also the friend on the phone, I haven't really thought about what fighting back or winning against the entity would be, because Steven's solution was just to completely isolate so that he could not spread it ever, but that didn't work.
It's just such a good story from start to finish, and then the things that aren't necessarily explained to us that are still there. I call that the understory. I don't know. The understory itself is really, really good too. Just great story.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Do you plan to make any more films?
I really hope so. And I do have a few ideas. You've seen one or two.
Yeah.
Others. Yeah, I really hope so. And I think now that I have gospel under my belt, I think I know how to approach the next project in maybe a little more organized way, or efficient way, maybe. Maybe efficient is the right word. I know you make shorts in one day.
It's kind of the same way you wrote the score for this film. I just like to go in, shoot once, and then get out of there. I don't know if that's lazy or just work smarter, not harder. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And for the final question, maybe this should have been the first question. I don't know. But what are some of your favorite films?
Oh, man. So I have three that I am constantly recommending. So these are going to be the three that I say. First is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. That's by far my favorite of his. I love that movie. I love the mixture of religion and sci-fi, kinda. And then Lords of Salem. That's my all-time favorite horror movie. I get a lot of flack for that, but I'm over it. It's my favorite.
Own it. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I love witches. I love the setting, the Salem fall setting. I just love that movie. And then another one called A Dark Song, which is it's about a extended ritual that's from real life sorcery or witchcraft, and it is really interesting. It's there's only two people in the whole movie. There's some other small parts, but it's really fascinating. Just these two people locked away performing this months-long ritual. This one wants to speak to her son that had passed away, and it's this months-long purification and ritual, and it's really wild.
It sounds
I love that
amazing.
one. It's really good. There's a lot of empathy in that one, a lot of emotional stuff in that one.
But is there anything else you want to say about Gospel and the making of, or anything else you want to add?
Just that it was really a great experience, just all the way through, and it was so wild to see something that you thought of on screen and other people can see it. It's that's a strange experience. I've never had something like that before. And I really appreciate you working on this with me. I mean, we were pretty much 50-50 as far as producing it. I mean,
it was a blast. I'm honored to have been asked to collaborate on it.
I had one little thing that I was curious about for Sara, and don't use any names, but did you have like a real person in mind that you were kind of basing her on, or?
No, I mean, it's hard, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. But like you said, when you press record, it's hard to be who you want to be on camera, especially when you're also, worried about the lines, worried about your position, worried about the lighting, worried about is the camera on, and you're thinking about all these other things at the same time while you're also trying to act.
Yeah.
But when I was forming Sara, I was trying to figure out, like, is she a sweetie or is she kind of like snarky? And I feel like every time I act, I just end up being the same person every time. But I was trying to be someone who's a little, got like a little bit of a tough edge to her, but also still compassionate enough to be like caring about where Steven is.
Yeah, more aggressive.
Yeah. I don't know if that's how it came out, but that's what I was trying. Okay. It was great to be able to have this like wrap up convo with you about Gospel and just talk a little bit about the secrets behind the movie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of it and also coming here onto my channel to talk about it. Oh, where can people find you? So
my name's Arnie, but my channel is The Gordonite, like Stuart Gordon, this lovely guy right here. And also on Instagram, I'm The Gordonite there as well.
All right, everyone, and if you haven't watched Gospel, but you're watching this, you should get on over to The Gordonite's channel and watch Gospel. All right, Arnie, thanks again, and we will talk soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Arnie for spending so much time here on my channel talking Gospel. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Again, please check out the Gordonite's channel or check him out on Instagram. And thank you, all of you who have watched the film or have even made it to the end of this video. If you missed my recent post, I got a new job, which is great, but I am in this transitional and adjusting phase right now, and the job is also requiring after hours and weekend work sometimes, so I'm very deep into the weekend and after hours working stage right now. So YouTube is not going to be as routine as it has been in the past. I do think I'm going to get back into a routine once I get adjusted, but sadly I haven't even gotten to comments lately. So anyway, please bear with me, and I will hope to be back on regularly soon. Ciao for now.